Hello, and welcome back to Big Nostalgia, the podcast where we look at games from our childhood, where they came from, the story of their development, and the story within the game itself. We then talk about the audio and visual designs, and if we like it, does it hold up? We also discuss the game's legacy. Is it well remembered? Did it spawn a billion sequels? Or is it an obscure title that we hear little about nowadays? I am Vicky.
I am Phil.
And we are continuing our Game Boy Color game coverage with a game that I did not realise was released on both systems until we began this season. The transitional game, the Breath of the Wild, Twilight Princess of its generation. It's Wario Land 2!
We've jumped a few games ahead since we covered Super Mario Land at the top of the season, but this is a game I have very fond memories of growing up with. And the more I researched, the more I think it was another great choice for this season. The first game to not have Super Mario Land in its title. Let's get started. Wario Land 2 was released for the Game Boy in North America on the 1st of March 1998, in Europe the 26th of March 1998, in Australia the 15th of May 1998. However, it was also released on the Game Boy Color on the 21st of October 1998 in Japan, the 23rd of December 1998 in Australia, the 5th of February 1999 in Europe, and the 10th of February 1999 in North America. A lot of release dates when it's across two systems. So, before we talk about Wario Land 2, let's briefly fill in the gaps in entries. So we talked about a little bit of this when we did the Legacy section of the Super Mario Land episode. So Super Mario Land was followed by Super Mario Land 2, 6 Golden Coins, which introduced Wario as the final boss, and he stole the entire show, which I'll expand upon in a moment. The game was followed by Wario Land, Super Mario Land 3, a game which kickstarted Nintendo's slightly confusing habit with titles. So this game walked so that Super Mario Advance 4, Super Mario Bros. 3 could run. And finally this game, Wario Land 2. A nice, simple, short title. And the first where the main man in red, Mario, does not actually appear at all. So let's start with Wario as a character. So, as we mentioned before, the Mario Land series of games was not developed by Nintendo R&D4/Nintendo EAD, who up to this point had developed all the mainline Mario games. And instead they were developed by Nintendo R&D1, who weren't used to working on Mario. For Super Mario Land 2, the team wanted to go against some of the Mario series conventions, one of which was Mario rescuing the princess, being his main objective. Instead, they wanted to create a game where Mario was regaining something that was previously his. The game's director and designer, Hiroshi Kiyotake, designed the concept of Wario as a potential villain for the game, and the team immediately loved it. And the plot of the game was devised that whilst Mario was in Sarasaland saving Daisy, Wario took over his castle in Mario Land. It raises a lot of questions about buying a castle on a plumber's salary, but it was a great idea for a story.
I mean, he could have got the support from Princess Peach. I mean, she is a princess.
It's true. Maybe that's why he goes around saving princesses. It's not for the good, it's for the reward.
He is on a plumber's salary.
It's true. After Super Mario Land 2, Wario took over the entire next game. I was trying to find a source for the interview, but I always understood that this was because the developers preferred working on a character they created themselves. So whilst they were quite happy to do the Mario Land games for Game Boy, Wario all of a sudden was their baby. It was their creation.
It's a new creation. It's very exciting, isn't it? They've literally just made him as a bad guy. He's been really well received by audiences. Has now got his own game. And Wario as a character is incredibly charming and a lot more fun. Because you've got that new concept, you've got that new character, you can be a lot more inventive, you can be a lot more daring than you can with a traditional character like Mario.
Yeah, meant they could change up the gameplay probably more as well. They could be more experimental rather than there is an expectation when it's a Mario game, isn't there, that it will follow a certain formula.
Well, Mario games have a certain formula, and also Mario is the good guy. He's the hero. He saves the kingdom from Bowser. Wario he came into the whole gig from a bad guy's perspective. So he doesn't have a written timeline on what he can do and what he can't do. They're still working that out, and that is very fun from a creative perspective.
Well, did you know that apparently he was inspired by Bluto, being Popeye's rival?
No, but that would make a lot of sense because Bluto is basically Popeye but with muscles and a bit of a like bad boy attitude, which is basically Wario, which is a rounder Mario with bad boy attitude.
Bad boy attitude. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Well, I can never imagine describing Wario as a good boy. He has a bad boy attitude through and through from the beginning.
I think it's just the phrase bad boy attitude. It's just like, evokes a certain image.
I
I suppose he rides a motorbike, doesn't
he? He does ride a motorbike. He does have a bad boy attitude.
Anyway, Wario Land Super Mario Land 3 is the story of Wario setting out for his own castle after getting kicked out of Mario's at the end of Mario Land 2. He hears about a giant statue of Princess Peach getting stolen, and then he goes to steal it for himself from pirates that are led by Captain Syrup. Mario's only appearance in Super Mario Land 3 is right at the end of the game, when Wario finally finds the statue of Princess Peach to steal it, and Mario comes in his plane and just picks it up and flies away.
Loser. You should have just called the Eagles. Why did you walk all that way? Why just call an eagle? Just call the plane.
Why does Mario go through the 8 themed worlds when he can simply fly? Wario Land 1, Super Mario Land 3. God, it's a strange title. I always get tripped up on it. Anyway, the game is kind of Mario Land-esque in a lot of ways. Like, it has a similar power-up system to Mario, because, like, rather than mushrooms, he uses garlic.
Yeah.
And there are, like, different power-ups, but then that completely changes in this game, and we'll talk about that more later. So the aim that was introduced in Wario Land and kind of continues is that the aim of the game is actually more about finding treasure than completing the platforming challenges.
Yeah.
It's a lot slower, and actually Wario Land has a different ending based on how much treasure you find. So finding more treasure will give like Wario a better castle. So,
okay, that's pretty cool.
If you only find a little bit, he has like a tree stump. It goes all the way to like a massive, massive castle. And I think one of the designs is then carried through to Wario Land 2.
Okay.
So I guess that's the canon ending, if you are that obsessed with what's canon in a Mario game. This aim for the game is actually repeated in a couple of GameCube games. So this happens again in Wario World, where the treasures you find is like the ending for Wario. But also it's the end of Luigi's Mansion, where the money that you find as Luigi during the game is how nice the mansion is once you defeat the ghosts.
Yeah.
So this whole thing of like your performance in the game dictating the end, like started with Wario Land 1. And then between Wario Land and Wario Land 2, there was the Virtual Boy Wario Land game, which was released for the doomed VR Nintendo system, the Virtual Boy, and it came out in 1995. It's very similar in a lot of its elements to the original Wario Land, except I found out when I was doing this research, the final boss is a massive demon's head.
Oh.
Which is very strange.
Very strange.
But this episode is on Wario Land 2, which is the story of Wario's castle being stolen. So now the shoe is on the other foot. So Wario gets thrown out of his castle, he gets stuff stolen from his castle, and he has to go after the syrup pirates. Once again, I think they're called the Brown Sugar Pirates, led by Captain Syrup. There's kind of a sugar theme through that. The game is still all about collecting treasure, like the first Wario Land, but this time the kind of change is that this game's got a branching story, and you can fulfill different conditions and different levels to have the story play out differently.
Ooh. The
core team from the Mario Land series continued to work on this one. It was directed by Takahiko Hosokawa and produced by Takahiro Izushi. This is, however, the first game in the series not to have been worked on by Gunpei Yokoi due to his death the year before it released.
Oh.
Yokoi, we mentioned previously as being the producer of the Mario Land series, being behind the Game Boy hardware as a whole, and we discussed that more on that episode. Characters. So we've spoken about the main character, the main hero. Well, hero is a questionable term. The main dude of the moment, Wario.
Yeah, hero doesn't work for Wario.
It doesn't.
Definitely as his first cameo was as the villain.
Yeah, and it's all it's a game about like stealing treasure and personal enrichment, which I'm not sure are heroic traits.
No.
The big bad is the femme fatale pirate Captain Syrup, who was the villain in the last game, and now rather than Wario robbing her, she is robbing Wario.
I wonder where she learned that trait from.
Exactly. So unlike the last game, so Wario Land 1, the final boss, was a genie that Captain Syrup had to fight Wario for her. In this one, she kind of fights you in a range of machines, a bit like... kind of looks like Dr. Eggman a little bit.
Okay, that sort of vibe.
Yeah. So some of the other bosses in this game are a giant snake who bites you and can turn Wario into an egg.
Obviously.
An evil bird called Bobo. A giant bee. A basketball-playing rabbit called Dunk, who will dunk you like a basketball if he catches you, which I think is awesome. I remember that character as well. The Cave Master, which is a pig creature who tries to push you around. A spiky fish called Big Camu Camu. Awabo, which I don't remember, and kind of looks like one of those bubble blowers you get as a kid.
Nah. Okay.
A ghost, which is called Ghost. And a giant spearman. I don't know if you remember the spearman enemies. They were like the Goombas of Wario Land 2.
Okay.
Obviously, you had to kind of attack them from behind because they have always obviously had their spears sticking out.
Cool.
In terms of the friendly creatures in this game, Wario has a pet chicken that's just called Hen. There's also an owl that can carry you, and a turtle which helps you get through strong currents.
Very helpful.
Yes.
I never really pictured... Well, I never really pictured Wario as a Disney princess, though.
Having a castle and a pet chicken.
Well, having a castle and being able to communicate with animals.
Wait, no. Moana doesn't have a castle. She's got the pet chicken.
No, but I'm thinking Snow White. She communicated with animals and she got a castle in the end. Maybe all Wario needs is a handsome prince.
Wow, 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 wow. Design. As I mentioned, the game is more focused on exploring and puzzle solving.
Yep.
And the aim is to find coins and treasure. Unlike the last game, Wario is now invincible. This is the first game where Wario does not die from hazards. So instead he drops his coins when he's hit, kind of like Sonic.
Very sad day for Wario when he loses his money. What happens when he gets to 0?
He just gets stunned. So he doesn't actually, there is no life system or anything like that. Because the whole point is like exploring and finding stuff rather than on like your actual ability to do the platforming and combat.
I like that though.
Obviously, you're rewarded for doing the combat better because you don't lose money, and the money is important for like the rest of the game
and the story and everything, especially if the way you do each level affects what sort of story you get. But I quite like that fact because I feel that if Wario's money wasn't touched, then he'd be happy to die as many times as he needed to get through the level. But being hit and losing your money, I feel that's more important to Wario than his life.
But I think because some of the power-ups are the effects of enemies, I think if you have death mixed in with that, maybe it's a bit confusing for the player to know what they can and can't be hit by.
Okay.
So I'll go through all of Wario's different... I've written power-ups, but they're more like conditions or status effects. But first, so Wario is typically slower than Mario, and in this game he has his trademark kind of shoulder barge, kind of rush technique, and also his ground pound that can kind of stun enemies. Yeah. These were both restricted to power-ups in the last game, so this is like the first one where they are his de facto default abilities, which they kind of are ever since. Do you remember any of the Wario abilities in this game?
No.
So you've got Ball, which is when Dunk tries to dunk him, it kind of makes him into a ball. Mm-hmm. But if you get away, you can kind of slowly bounce away until you can recover. He becomes Bouncy Wario when he's hit by an ape's mallet, and that's how you like spring. Basically, he kind of can then spring straight up somewhere, so it's like a higher jump. Bubble Wario if he gets caught in a bubble. Crazy Wario where he gets dizzy and stumbles around. Yeah, we'll talk more about that one later. Fat Wario from eating too much cake. We've all been there. So Fat Wario is needed for certain like ground blocks that you can't break with your ground pound.
Oh, okay.
Flat Wario from getting squished, for getting underneath, being able just to get underneath things.
Yeah.
Hot Wario from getting set on fire. Again, there's certain blocks that can only be burned away, so you have to set yourself on fire and run at them. I think it's cool.
Because that is obviously a life lesson we should all learn. If we need to set something on fire and we can't reach it with our match or anything, we must set ourselves on fire and run at the object.
Yeah, if we need to burn our way through something, the easiest way is to set ourselves on fire first.
Obviously.
Because then we've always got fire on us at any point.
3rd-degree burns? What even are they?
There's Ice Skate and Wario, which happens when you get frozen and you kind of slide. There's Puffy Wario from getting stung by a bee, and that kind of lets you float, kind of like Kirby. There is Tiny Wario, which obviously is after you get cursed by a wizard.
Obviously.
And Zombie Wario, after you get bitten by a zombie.
Obviously.
So I guess if you did have it so that like too much damage could make you die, you might not discover these things because you're too worried about the actual repercussion of
being hit, squished,
and like losing a life,
bubbled, cursed. Yeah.
He's a very versatile person, really, being able to survive all that.
Oh, absolutely.
Every level ends with a matching mini game. So first it's like one where you have to match a picture. Mm-hmm. And you can pay a certain amount of money to lower the difficulty. And that's like how long it shows you. Because there's like 8 at the bottom and they all flip round. And then you have to pick the one that it shows you.
Yeah.
So it affects how long it flips around by how much money you pay. And then that one gives you a treasure if you get it right. And then there's also a number matching game where it's kind of like a 3x3 grid. You know, like how the digital versions of numbers, like on digital clocks.
Yeah.
So I think by default it flips over the first one, and then you can pay 50 coins to keep flipping them over. And then you have to guess what number it is. And if you guess right, you get a piece of the map that then will take you to the final level.
Yeah.
So there is 50 pieces you have to get from every level.
It's quite high.
I suppose it's a 1 in 9 chance just to guess it, but the more money you have, obviously, the more obvious you can make it.
But then if you want to spend the money.
Yeah. There's a later version of that game as well, which is just time-based. So every time a couple of seconds goes on, it automatically shows you the next one and takes your money.
Oh, okay.
So it's actually more based on you like working it out quickly because your money's like constantly ticking down.
Yeah.
But yeah, you have to you have to do that for every level to go to the 51st level, which is the final level. So levels. Let's talk about levels. I was just mentioning levels.
Let's talk about levels.
Yeah. There are branching paths in the story, but generally the game is made of 5 worlds called chapters, with 5 stages in each one called stories. The branching paths result in doing different chapters. I never knew this, but so we make a joke when we did our Hat in Time Let's Play, when we talk about Zelda, we always make the same joke about the beginning of the game. Always has to start with your main character asleep in bed.
Yeah.
The first branching path, so the game starts with Wario asleep and any button kind of wakes him up. If you don't do anything, after 30 seconds, the level just ends. And it goes to a completely different first level.
Really?
And that is the first branching path.
Okay. Wow, I didn't expect that.
So the original first level is you wake up and you turn off the alarm, which is sounding in a different room.
Yep.
But otherwise, if you just stay asleep, then the pirates' forces throw you out the castle, and the first world becomes about re-entering your castle. So, yeah, well, you have to do every level for 100%, but
yeah,
I do like this idea because I think it adds a lot of replayability.
Yes.
And I do like the fact that the conditions are different for some of these branches rather than just find the secret exit.
Well, find the secret exit or collect so much of a certain item, or make sure you have a certain item on you when you exit. Like, it can get a bit tropey. Like, potentially the first person who found that out was like, oh, I'll just make myself a quick drink before I start this game. They come back and he's been like kicked out of the castle, and they're just like, okay, when did
The
that
game
happen?
doesn't wait for you, apparently.
No. The game waits for no person.
So yeah, then there's like other ones where it is a secret exit, but like you have to lose to the boss essentially in your first showdown, and then you fall down to another area, and then you can find a secret exit in that area where you just bypass the boss. So it's like interesting ways to do it. Like I think it's good for like replayability, especially when it's like those earlier games where like maybe you got a long car journey or something to take full advantage.
It's just a bit of fun, isn't it?
Yeah. So yeah, 51 levels in total, but you can only access the 51st level after finding all the map pieces in the 50 original levels. And half of those, so 5 chapters are kind of like your standard game by going through the standard exit, and you got 5 chapters which you have to find through branching paths. So, the music. The soundtrack was composed by Kozue Ishikawa, who also composed for Link's Awakening, alongside composing for the first Wario Land game. She actually only worked at Nintendo for a short time, but in that time she composed for the Wario series, the Zelda series, and also the Game Boy Color Mario Tennis game.
Nice.
So I quite like this soundtrack because it differs from Mario and it has a very distinct style. Like Mario music is very energetic and upbeat. This music, the best word I can find to describe it is like plods at times. Like it's it's like slower. And less energetic because the game is like slower pace. Like it's about exploring and puzzle solving rather than like speeding through a level. So I think it does well for like Wario. Like the sound effects and stuff are very Wario-like. Like they're not really upbeat or like really high energy. They're just, some of them are a bit like blunter.
They represent the character well.
Yeah, I think it's an example of kind of like good sound design helping like your characterization of like, and how you want your character to feel. Quirks. So I was talking about Wario getting dizzy earlier as one of his status effects. So in the Rest of the World release, this was a penguin who throws some kind of like ball into Wario's mouth and that makes him dizzy.
Yeah.
Doesn't really make sense.
No.
Because in the original Japanese, the penguin is throwing beer. And it's meant to be drunk Wario.
Which makes sense. That makes sense.
Wario Land 2 is the last first-party Nintendo game to be released on the original Game Boy, which makes sense as it got a Game Boy Color release as well. This is the first Wario game where he wears short sleeves.
See those muscles? Because those swans are totally sick.
They are. The Japanese release of this game came with decals, like stickers in the shape of Wario's mustache.
Cool.
The treasures you collect are references to like other Nintendo games. So you've got one of them is like a piece of coral from like the water levels in Super Mario Bros. Like a Metroid from Metroid, a pill from Dr. Mario, and a Yoshi egg from Super Mario World. They're all treasures you can find.
Yeah.
And kind of from the cutting room floor, there is a level where there is coins which are just impossible to reach, like outside the map. And the theory they pose on that website is maybe that the developers just simply forgot to make a bit of wall destructible. So therefore the coins are just off out of your view and you'll never find them. So I didn't find too many quirks for this one, believe it or not, but I think, there's a lot of just interesting stuff about the game in general and its kind of place in...
Wario Land is kind of a quirk in itself, isn't it? The whole concept.
Yeah, that's what I mean, is like... And this one really defined a lot of what you consider to be Wario things. Like, and they were things that continued in Wario Land 3 and Wario Land 4, so... Yeah. If you know more quirks about Wario Land or the Wario Land series, do let us know in the comments. What did we miss? Anyway, Legacy. So Wario Land 2 was followed by 2 more Wario Land games, which was Wario Land 3 on Game Boy Color, and then Wario Land 4 on Game Boy Advance. So after that, the series went in more of the WarioWare route with like the micro games. There was one more Wario Land game later on in the form of Wario Land Shake It on Nintendo Wii in 2008. Wario would finally get a 3D platformer in the form of Wario World, which we mentioned earlier, which was a GameCube game. Wario Land 2 was well received upon its release. for its puzzles and exploration focus, plus its focus on like secrets and alternating paths. Although people did criticise the Game Boy Color version for just being a coloured version of the Game Boy game, like there wasn't really any other upgrades. It didn't sell very well, however, or at least not according to the best data I could find. A few websites all said the same figure, so they could all just be copying the same thing, but the data I found suggested there was only 1.5 million units sold worldwide.
That's not very high.
Yeah, it was the lowest selling of the 4 original Wario Land games, and it sold a lot less than the Mario Land games.
Yeah.
So, thoughts on this is that the highest selling of those 4 Wario Land games was the first one, and possibly because it had Mario in the title, even though Mario's not in it. Like, being Super Mario Land 3. But yeah, I was surprised by that, because I always remember this game, but then, like, it's just because this is the game we own, so therefore you kind of remember it as like, oh, this one must be the iconic one.
I just feel like this is a game that was talked about quite a lot, and quite, it always gave that impression. It was well known, but I have a feeling our eldest brother might be the biggest fan.
Yeah. But even he, I think, would say he likes Wario Land 4 more.
Yeah, but he would talk about the Wario. Potentially because Wario was only a major... He was a baddie. Then, of course, he had Wario Land 1, but still had Mario in the title, even though Mario wasn't in the game. Maybe it's still too new in the Nintendo franchise to have a complete game, even though the game before didn't have Mario in it. It had him in the title. To have a complete game title, just him.
Yeah, because I was especially surprised, because you'd think if it released on both systems, that would have given it maybe a boost, but... No, the other games all sold more. I mean, it didn't slow him down. I mean, Wario remains a Mario staple, and he's probably the most recognisable characters in the series.
Oh, absolutely. Outside, so you've got obviously Luigi, Mario, Daisy, and Peach. So the 2 main guys and the girlfriend. The next one I'd say is Wario.
Yeah.
And Wario and Waluigi, because they're basically the evil versions. I'm waiting for the evil versions of Peach and Daisy.
Well, like the War Peach or whatever that concept was. I think for Mario Tennis they were going to do it, weren't they?
Yeah, they still haven't done it quite yet. Like, because even bad guys deserve a date, eh?
So yeah, I'd love to see another Wario platformer one day. So Vicky, obviously you've talked about it a bit, but what are your main reflections on Wario Land 2?
I enjoy Wario Land 2 as a concept, and it's another game that I haven't played a lot of, even though we did own it as kids. It was more yours and obviously our other brother's game. It's not one I remember very clearly. I have had a little play on it, obviously, before this recording, just to reflect my memory. I think you're right about the music. It was very much Wario themed, and it was lovely that the development team really wanted to take charge on the Wario.
Kind of like his character and his direction and things.
Yeah, what's that? Coming out party. Yeah, it just felt like it was their baby. They'd created it. They wanted to make sure it had a clear vision. And even if it hasn't been well received in this game, I do like the fact that they just didn't give up. They continued on with Wario games, and obviously has kept it as quite a staple in the Nintendo franchise. I think what I like about this game is more Wario as a character rather than the game itself, though.
Yes. I think it's one of those where I think it's the fact that Wario has now become such an icon in his own right. And I think that's maybe why I'd be interested in, like, Wario Land 5 or something, because now that he's so much more defined and things like that, and maybe there's new things you can do with him, maybe combine it with the WarioWare characters that they introduced and just, like, make some crazy experimental platformer again. Like, redefine it like they did with this game.
What I like about this series is that we get to see where some of our most favourite characters from the Nintendo series, their roots, where they came from. I kind of feel the same way about Wario as I do about Kirby. I don't particularly take away anything highly from the original Kirby games. They're fine. They're a lot of, they're fun and they're quirky and nice and high beat. But for me, they were just like their leaping platform. They've become so much more in later games. and the characters themselves within the Nintendo franchise, especially when you put into play stuff like Super Smash Bros. And their storylines. It really opens that world concept for Nintendo and really opens up that character development for all the characters, really. So yeah, I suppose the way I think about Wario is the way I think about Kirby in the older games. But maybe it's just a generational thing as well. Please let us know what you think. It might just be the fact that this is obviously nostalgia, so I'm thinking about it when I was a kid, and the sort of games that were out then compared to the games we're now at a stage where we see where the development has taken them. But yeah, really want to hear your opinions. Was Wario Land 2 like your best game ever? What do you think of Wario as a character? We always want to hear your comments, so please comment below.
This brings us to the end of this episode of Big Nostalgia Season 4. What did you think? Have you played any Wario Land games? Do you prefer the original Wario Land for being more Mario-ish? Or do you prefer the later games? Wario Land 5 on Switch 2 announcement when?
Next time, Nick is back with us as we look at our second Looney Tunes game of the season with Tweety's High Flying Adventure. We'll see you up there. I've been Vicky.
I've been Phil.
Thank you very much
for joining us.
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you from both of us.
We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
This brings us...
I thought I thought we were doing it differently. I thought because you ended that last bit. You said Did you forget?
Maybe. Take it away, Phil.